Already mic testing, mic testing. Okay, perfect. Let me go to my main camera. Alright, we're live, and as you guys can tell by the title and thumbnail, today I'm going to be going over collision detection logic in SDL3 using C++. That said, last stream I did go over collision logic again. I went over collision with objects and also collision with like PNGs, but I did not go over pixel perfect collision because apparently that was a bit too advanced. That said, today I'm going to be working on more collisions with PNG, but not pixel perfect just yet. That said, let's go to my gameplay screen. Okay, let me say something like say live exclamation. And guys, if I can't talk properly right now, that is because I'm not warmed up yet. Okay, let me say something like today I want to work with collision as well, just like yesterday exclamation. Okay, let's see. People, you're live. Good. Get your hands at the game because today we break the laws of space and time with collision logic. You think collision is just like yesterday? No, today we dive deeper. Today you stop guessing and start demanding the math. Get ready because I'm not gonna go easy on you. Viewers want the blood of bugs. Alright, tell me the alright, tell me this first so we can start smashing rectangles like a demigod. Are we using shapes again or PNG texture for collision? The moment you answer, we start building the collision system, and if you mess up, I'm gonna yell at you even harder. Okay, your compiler will feel it. Let me say something like, let's say I want to go over PNG collision. That said, I can write a code where I get two PNGs on the screen and also add key controls for one. Then we can work on adding collision for them. Okay, let's see. Okay, that said, good PNG collision. That's real game dev territory, people. Okay, get your hands steady because we're about to fight the demon on pixel perfect collision. Listen closely. You will write the code that loads two PNG textures, draws them on the screen, and lets one move, and one of them with WASD. Okay, not me, you. Because if I write it for you, you will learn nothing and I will drag you across the original floor until you do. The moment you show me the code, I will check, are the textures loaded correctly? Are the render copies correct? Are the key controls responsive? Are the regs tracking their movement? And if you misplace one SDL function, I'll yell at you so all the chat will think the sky split open. Okay, that said, this is the code from last stream because I didn't have time to like work on this code off stream. So let me go ahead and delete this. And the reason I'm not actually working on the collision logic myself is because I just like tried writing it once yesterday because and I didn't like have much practice with it because technically I didn't have to like work on my call stuff. That said, firstly, let me go ahead and include a pair of ankle braces. Let's say I want to include IO stream. How did you assign the WASD keys for the controls? Honestly, if I were to go with like a bunch of control Z's, technically I did like add like key controls here, so I did like switches to like set my boolean variables to be true if one of those buttons are clicked, else I set them to be false. Then I did like just add my regular key controls here, like if my A is set to true, I do something type stuff. Okay, that's it. Now let me go ahead and delete everything, and let's go ahead and start off by including a pair of ankle braces. Let's say I want to include IO stream, and then since I am using SDL3, I'm going to be including, let's say, SDL3 and my SDLs as header files as well. Once I'm done with that, since I am going to be using the SDLs as image section, I'm going to be including the image library for SDL as well. So I'll go with SDL3 underscore image slash SDL underscore image dot h, which is basically the header files for my SDLs as image and my images library. Okay, perfect. And once I'm done with that, I'm gonna go ahead and create a few classes. Let's say the first class that I want to create is gonna be, I don't know, maybe something like my mage class. So the first class I'm gonna go for is gonna be my mages class. Maybe I might go with my sword class because usually I do always go with mage classes. This time I want to go with my sword class. Okay, so I'm gonna go with something like sword and then add a pair of curly braces. Although here's the thing, when I do add my sword class, do I want to apply gravity? I don't think I'm going to be applying my gravity for this code. Okay, so once I create my sword class, firstly, do I need any private or protected data members? I might need a private data member, so I might go with something like private. Okay, let's say I want my SDL underscore textures as structure. which is going to be having, let's say, something like a sort local variable. Okay, I'm going to set this to be something like private, and then I'm going to publicize everything. Okay, now where would I need, like, once I publicize everything? I might have to create a constructor for my sort, so I might go with something like my sources class, okay, with a pair of parentheses. Now, my sources constructor is going to be requiring a few parameters. Let's say the first parameter is going to be of my renderer, so I'll use my SDL underscore renderer as a structure with an asterisk to a renderer local variable. Okay, and then maybe I might go with something like a floating point for scale, because technically I do want to scale my PNG as well, because I don't want it to be like really, really huge. Okay, that's it. Now, inside my constructor, firstly, I'm going to be loading my image. To do that, I could go ahead and use my sword. Did I spell sword correct? There we go, my sword underscore images texture right here. I'm going to be setting that equal to, let's go with something like image underscore the load texture function. Now, my load texture function is going to be requiring two parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer. Actually, is it going to be my renderer? Okay, it is my renderer. The second parameter is going to be the file path where my source's PNG is actually located. So I'm going to go with something like assets / let's say something like sort.png. I hope this is actually the correct file path. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and end my function with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done actually adding my function, what else would I need? Maybe I'll have to like create a rect as well, so I could go ahead and create a SDL underscore frex structure, because technically my PNGs is like, they are going to be inside a rectangle. So I'm going to go with something like sort rect. Maybe I just go with rect. Okay, I'm just going to go with rect, ending with a semicolon. Now, for my rect, I'm going to be adding a few parameters for my rect, like the x-axis, y-axis, but before that, I do want to get the width of my rectangle and the height, so I could go ahead and, let's say, create a floating point variable for my textures as width and a floating point for my textures as height. Once I'm done with that, I can use the SDL underscore, let's say something like the get texture size function, so I'm going to use the get texture size function. Okay, this function actually gets my textures as size, but it does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be of my texture, which in this case is my source's image. The second parameter is going to be the memory address of my textures as width and the memory address of my textures as height. Then I'm going to end my function with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done actually creating my function, let's go ahead and actually set a few values. So let's say my rect local variables, this x-axis is going to be something around, I don't know, maybe 100, ending with a semicolon. And then I'll go with something like rect.y-axis equals to 400. The reason I did like go with 100 and 400 is because I'm going to be keeping the width of my window 1000 and height 400. So actually height 800. So 400 will be like my rect is at the center left of the screen. That makes any sense. Okay, then I go with something like my rex's width is going to be equal to my texture's width multiplied by my scale. Apparently, we gotta like multiply our stuff by our scale, so we get the perfect size. And then I'm going to go with my texture's height, which is going to be equal to, actually my rect.height is going to be my texture's height multiplied by scale as well. Okay, and that's actually pretty much it for my sources attributes. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and exit outside of my constructor. I think long story, I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and exit outside of my constructor and then do something. Let's go ahead and create a void function called something like draws. Actually, a void method, because technically functions inside of classes are called methods. So I'm going to be creating a draw method that does require a parameter of my renders. So I'll use the SDL underscore renders as texture. Okay, there we go. Actually, it renders the structure which has a parameter of my renderer. And then I go with the pair of curly braces. Is this Python? Honestly, this is like C++ and like SDL3. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and now, let's say use the SDL underscore render texture function. So basically, the render texture function is a function that tells my render to render my texture on my screen. It's like draw my PNG on my screen. Although the render texture function does require a bunch of parameters. The first parameter is going to be my render. The second parameter is going to be my texture. In this case, my texture is my sort image. So I'm going to go with something like sort image. And then the third parameter is going to be a source rect. I do not have a source rect, so I'm going to set that equal to null PDR, which is basically a placeholder for like pointers. Okay, well, I'm the first. Okay, after that, I'm going to be requiring a direction rect as the fourth parameter. The DST slash direction rect is technically the rect that I create here. So I'm going to be setting this to be my rect. Actually, the memory address of my rect, I keep forgetting that because whatchamacallit, these are technically pointers type stuff. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and exit my function with a semicolon. Okay, and I think that's like pretty much it for my start class. So I'm gonna go ahead and exit my class right now, and then let's create a main function. So I'm gonna go with something like integer main, add a pair of parentheses. Now inside of my main function, I'm gonna go ahead and have two parameters. Let's say the first parameter is gonna be an integer of argc. The second parameter is gonna be a character, which is gonna be an array, which is going to be a pointer towards an array of argv. Okay, and then let's go with the pair of curly braces. Now, inside my main function, I'm firstly going to be initializing my SDL and also checking if my SDL was not initialized properly. To do that, I'm going to go with something like a if statement. Okay, what you working on? Honestly, I am like working on collision logic in like SDL3. Last stream I did go over that as well, but I just had time to like write the code once with collision logic, so I didn't get enough practice. This year I'm planning to get more practice in it. Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna go with something like if not SDL underscore init with a pair of parentheses. Let's go with something like SDL underscore init underscore video. So basically, there we go. Okay, so basically what this tells, SDL underscore init initializes my SDL, but it does require a flag, so I go with the video section of my SDL. I'm saying if the video section of my SDL was not initialized properly, I'm going to be displaying a error text, so I'm going to go with a standard C error with an insertion operator that is going to say something like SDL underscore init error. Okay, perfect. And then let's go with another insertion operator, and this time let's use the function that actually gets us an error. So I'll use the SDL underscore the get error function. This function actually gets me an error. Then I'm going to go with another insertion operator of a standard end line ending with a semicolon. And lastly, let's return one saying something is wrong in this block of code. So go check it out. How long have you been studying this? Honestly, I have been like working with like SDL3 for I think about like, it's been I think 2-ish weeks or something, but I have been like learning C++ for the past, let's say 60, I think it's been like 69 days or something today. Okay, that said, now once I'm done adding a if statement and initializing my SDL, I'm gonna add a comment that says something like game variables. Now, what all game variables might I need? I might actually need, let's say something like a constant integer of width. This is going to be my displaces width, which is going to be initially set to 1000. And then I'm going to be creating a constant integer for height. This is going to be my Windows' height. I'm going to be setting that equal to 800 ending with a semicolon. Okay, maybe since I am going to be adding key controls, I might add x-axis and y-axis velocity as well. So I'll go with something like a floating point of x-axis underscore velocity, which is going to be set to something like 5.0 floating point. And then lastly, I'll go with something like a floating point for y-axis underscore velocity, which is going to be set to something like 5.0 floating point as well. And I'm not going to be adding gravity because I'm not like working with gravity this stream. Maybe after this code, I might actually try one with gravity as well. Okay, talk in Hindi and I might donate. Guys, even if you guys try, you guys can donate because I didn't actually watch as my channel up. That said, next up, I'm going to be creating, let's say something like, I'm going to add a comment that says something like create a window and a renderer. Okay, now for my create window and renderer comment, this is going to be the place where I actually do create my window and renderer. But before I do create it, I would need two local variables. The first local variable is going to be, let's say something like a standard Windows structure. I'm going to have something like a window variable here, which is technically a pointer, so I'm going to be setting it to null PDR. That is basically a placeholder for pointers. And then I'm going to go with something like a standard renderer. So let's go with something like a standard renderer with an asterisk to, let's say, a renderer local variable, which is going to be set to null PDR ending with a semicolon. Are you not proud of being Indian? Honestly, I haven't like been to India yet, but I am kind of excited someday to visit it. That said, the reason I don't actually talk in Hindi is because I'm not like as fluent in it as I'm in English, so I wouldn't be able to like express myself or like tell what I'm actually doing properly because I don't know most of the words and phrases. That said, let's go ahead and now create, let's go ahead and now use the function that actually creates both my window and my renderer at the same time. To do that, I could go ahead and use the SDL underscore create window and a renderer function. Okay, brother, you're explaining what you wanna, but not what it does. Please explain the code more. Honestly, explain the code more. I feel like whatchamacallit, the SDL underscore create window and renderer function does create both my window and renderer at the same time. I think that is like, okay, you explaining what you wanna, but not what it does. Honestly, I feel like I'm explaining like what it does as well, because like I create two local variables that I'm going to be needing inside of my this function. My create window and render function does require a few parameters. The first parameter is gonna be, let's say, caption slash a title, so I might go with something like SDL3 window created. And the second and third parameter is going to be my Windows' width and my Windows' height. So I could go ahead and use my width variable and my height variable. And then let's say something like, I'm going to be needing a flag for my window. If you guys didn't want to add a flag, you guys could go with 0. But I do want to add a flag that makes my window resizable. So I could go with something like SDL underscore window underscore resizable flag. There we go. Okay, once I'm done creating a flag for the final two parameters, I'm going to be needing the memory address for my window local variable and my render local variable. So I could go with something like an asterisk window and asterisk renderer. Okay, and that's pretty much it for my window and renderer functions. So now that I'm done creating my window and my renderer, I'm going to be using a function that checks if they were not created properly, because apparently in C++ we do got to check if we get an error. So I'll go with something like if a pair of parentheses, excuse me guys, let's say something like if not window, if my window was not created properly, or if not a renderer, if my renderer was not created properly. If either one of them were not created properly, I'm going to display myself an error message. So I'll go with a standard C error with an insertion operator that, let's say something like I got a SDL underscore create a window and a renderer error. Okay, so I get a create window and renderer error, and then I'm going to be using the function that actually gets me an error. So I'll go ahead and use the SDL underscore get errors as function, and then let's go with another insertion operator of a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Now, if either my window or my renderer were not created properly, firstly, I want to quit my SDL. So I'm going to go with something like SDL underscore quit with a parentheses, and then I'm going to end it with a semicolon. And then I'm going to be returning one saying something went wrong in this block of code, so go check it out. Alright, once I'm done creating and also checking if my window or renderer was not created properly, I'm going to do something. Okay, better now. Which country do you live in? Honestly, I used to answer at botch in my previous streams, but I did like avoid saying that now these days. Okay, that's it. Now, once I'm done creating both my window and my renderer, let's see, what else would I create? I might actually add a comment that says something like main loop, because I can't think anything else that goes before my main loop anymore. Okay, so now for my main loop, firstly, I'm going to be requiring a few variables. The first variable is going to be a boolean variable of something like is running to check if my program is currently running. I'm going to be setting that to be, let's say, true. And then I'm going to be needing an event variable as well to check my current event type, because I will be having an event loop inside of my main loop. So I'm going to go with something like SDL underscore events as structure. This structure consists of all my SDLs as event. I'm going to be having a local event variable representing it. Okay, now once I'm done with that, I might actually add some boolean variables for checking if my keys are currently being pushed downwards. So I could go with something like a boolean of A down to check if my A is currently being pushed down. Since I'm not pushing my A down, I'm going to be setting that to be false. And then I'm going to go with something like D down as well, which is going to be set to false as well because I'm not pushing my D down. And then I'll go with something like W down, which is going to be set to false because I'm not pushing my W down as well. And lastly, S down, which is going to be set to false as well because I'm not pushing my S down. Okay, perfect. And that's like pretty much it for my basic my basic variables that I was creating. Okay, do you live in India? Honestly, no, I haven't like been to India, but I might actually someday visit it. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and let's say create my main while loops. I'm gonna go with something like while a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like while is running, while my program is running, or while my is running is set to true. I'm gonna do something. Firstly, I'm gonna add a comment that says something like event loop. Event loop is basically whatchamacallit. It's gonna be another while loop, a while loop inside of a while loop / a nested loop. My event loop is going to be in charge of checking for the event types that I'm looking for, although it does require a function as a parameter. It requires the SDL underscore poll event function that does require a parameter which is technically going to be the memory address of my event variable here. So basically what the SDL underscore poll events function does is it like checks for any events that I'm looking for inside of my while loop. If any of those events is true, if any of those events is also an event inside of my SDL events structure, it does what I tell it to do. Okay, have you ever been in the United States, guys? I don't think I can answer that, but maybe yeah. Okay, where do you live then? No, not you, the guy. No, not you, the guy. Guys, I'm actually a guy. Okay, that said, let's go ahead and firstly, let's see, create an if statement. So I'm gonna say something like if my event dot type equals to SDL underscore event underscore quit. If my event type is quit, then I'm gonna do something. I'm going to be setting my is running boolean variable to be equal to false, ending with a semicolon. Okay, that is my first type of event loop, but I'm actually looking for like multiple event loops because I do want to add like I want to add 2 event loops to check if any of these buttons are being pushed down or if they're not being pushed down. To do that, I could go ahead and add another if statement. So I'm going to go with something like if type of parentheses. Now I'm going to check if my event dot type equals to. What's up, bro? How you doing, Nicotine? I appreciate you joining the stream. So I'm gonna go with if my event dot type equals to SDL underscore event underscore key underscore down. This event type checks if any of my key buttons are currently being held down in my keyboard. And if any of them are being held down, I'm gonna be doing something. Now you guys could actually add another if statement inside of my initial if statement, but I wanna add switches because like I feel it looks kinda cool. Okay, I'm gonna go with something like if my event dot key, this basically checks the exact key that is being pushed down. And I'm gonna add a few cases now to do if a certain key is being pushed down. So I'm gonna check if my SDL's key is something like A. If my A is currently being pushed down, I'm gonna set my A down boolean variable to be true, ending with a semicolon. For my second case, I'm gonna check if my SDL's key is D. If my D is currently being pushed down, I'm going to set my D down boolean variable to be true, ending with a semicolon. And maybe I should even add a break because I usually forget adding breaks. What up, guys? There we go. Okay, doing good. How about you? Honestly, I'm doing pretty good as well. Okay, is this how big developers also make games? I mean, I think maybe, yeah, like some logic would be true, but they might actually like use game engine and all that. I am using like SDL3, which does require more programming and like more coding than like actual game engines. But that is because I am still practicing and like learning the code before I do like take the easier way or something like that, if that makes any sense. No, most developers use an actual game engine like Unity, Unreal, Godot, etc. That actually does make sense. Okay, so I'm gonna go with something like if my SDL's key is something like W, then I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna set my W down boolean variable to be true, ending with a semicolon, then I'm gonna break. And lastly, I'm gonna check if my SDL's key, which is currently being pressed, is S. If it is S, I'm gonna set my S down to be true, ending with a semicolon, then I'm gonna break. Okay, that was like pretty much it. Now, just to save time, I'm gonna go ahead and copy my key down events loop, and the only thing that I am going to be changing from here is my down to up. Basically, my SDL underscore event underscore key underscore up is the opposite of down. Down checks if any of my keys are being held downwards. Up checks if it's not being held downwards, and if any of these keys are not being held downwards, I'm going to be setting them to be false. So I'm going to change all these trues to be falses again. There we go. Okay, perfect. And that's like pretty much it for my entire event loop. Now, let's go ahead and exit outside of my event loop right here. Okay, and then zoom in a bit. Are you developing a game? Honestly, I am actually looking for, I am actually like learning about collision logic using like PNGs, like when 2 PNGs actually collide with each other. Hey, look at my favorite fanboy dev. Guys, I'm actually not fanboy, I'm like actually straight. That said, next up, let me go ahead and add a comment that says something like key controls. So I'm gonna go with something like key controls. Okay, now for my key controls, firstly, I'm gonna go ahead and add a few if statements. Okay, these are the if statements to check if any of my buttons are currently being held down, which means they're true. Firstly, I'm gonna go with A. If my A down is set to true, then I'm gonna do something. Firstly, I'm gonna go ahead and let's say before I do create my main loop, I do gotta create objects as well. I actually completely forgot about that. So So I'm gonna add a comment that says something like create objects. Now for my objects, I'm going to be creating a sort object which is going to be representing my sort class. Okay, that does require two parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer. The second parameter is going to be a size which I'm going to be setting to 0.1, ending with a semicolon. Now I scroll all the way down. If my A down is currently being pushed, I'm going to go with something like my sort dot rect dot, let's say something like x-axis is going to decrease by my x-axis underscore velocity, ending with a semicolon. Then I'm going to go with another if statement. Okay, I just joined. Can you tell what exactly is going on? Honestly, I am actually like working with like collision logic. Like when one PNG hits the other PNG, it does something. Like if that makes any sense. Like for example, if two things, my pen and my lip balm, they hit each other, they collided type stuff. Okay, which engine? Honestly, I'm not using an engine. I am like using SDL3. This is basically like more coding. Like SDL3 does require more programming than regular game engines, but the reason I am using this is to get better at programming instead of just relying on game engines for the time being. Hi gentlemen, how are you doing? Prob, I appreciate you joining the stream. Can we connect on LinkedIn? Honestly, I don't have LinkedIn, but you guys could like join my Discord server because I do like chat with you guys there. Okay, now don't believe him, guys. He's just shy since I revealed it yesterday in his stream. Guys, I'm actually not a fanboy. That said, how are you doing, Bunty? I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, now I'm going to check if my, let's say something like if my D down is set to true, then I'm going to do something. I'm going to go with a pair of curly braces which sets my sort.rect.x-axis to increase by my x-axis underscore velocity, ending with a semicolon. And then I add another if statement now to check if my W down is set to true. If it is set to true, then I'm going to do something. Alright guys, let's go with a bunch of control C's. Let's go with something like W down. And then I'm going to go with a pair of curly braces. If it is set to true, then I'm going to go with something like my sort.rect.y-axis this time. I'm going to be decreasing that by my y-axis underscore velocity, which is technically 5 frames per second. And lastly, I'm going to go with another if statement that checks if my S down is set to true. If it is set to true, I'm going to set my sort.rect.y-axis to increase by my y-axis underscore velocity, ending with a semicolon. And that's pretty much it. Okay, GitHub. Honestly, I do have a GitHub, but I did not like learn or like upload anything there because I didn't know actually how to use it. But maybe once my college is over, I might actually like work on learning on how to use GitHub. That's it. But Yankees, let him cook. Okay, just let him cook, guys. That does make sense. Okay, so now, firstly, after my key controls, I'm gonna add a comment that says something like fill screen because I don't want my screen to like just be black color. So I do want it to be like a good cyan color. Okay, you don't need the curly braces. I mean, I think they look kind of cool. Like, even if I didn't like actually need them, but I think they look like kind of cool. Okay, that's it. Now, if I do want to fill my screen, firstly, I gotta set a color to my render. To do that, I could use the SDL underscore set render. So I'm saying my render to like, so I'm saying my render to set render draw color. Guys, I think I phrased that kind of wrong. Basically, the set render draw color function, it adds a color to my render. Render is like a paintbrush that colors what I tell it to actually color. So my set render draw color function does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer. The second, third, and fourth parameter is going to be an RGB value. I'm going to set my RGB value to be 0, 248, and 255, which is a good cyan color. And lastly, my fifth parameter, or my, yeah, I think my fifth parameter is going to be alpha / opacity, how transparent or how not transparent I want my color to be. In this case, I set it to be 255 because I don't want my color to be transparent at all. Okay, let me actually cancel the Norton. There we go. Okay, once I'm done with that, now let's actually use the function that fills my screen with a color. So I could go with the SDL underscore render clear function. So basically the render clear function, what it does is it like clears / fills my entire screen with the color of my render. That is technically cyan in this case. And that's like pretty much it. Once I'm done filling my screen, I'm gonna add a comment that says something like graphics. For my graphics, I'm firstly going to be drawing my sort on my screen. So I'm going to go with something like my sort objects dot the draw method. So I'm going to draw my sort on the screen. That does require a parameter of my renderer. And then I'm going to go ahead and end this with a, excuse me guys, with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done drawing my sort, I actually can't think of anything else. So I might add a comment that says something like present. Because we do got to present our render on our screen, or like none of the colors are going to be visible to us. To present it, I could go ahead and use the SDL underscore render present function. This says the render to present itself. although it does require a parameter of my renderer. Once I'm done with that, I'm gonna add a comment that says FPS as well. The reason I am like going with FPS is because whatchamacallit, since I will be having animation and like movement in my screen, for example, my sword moving around using key controls, having FPS does make it more visually good, if that makes any sense, because without SDL they would move like really quick. Okay, to add FPS, I'll use the SDL underscore delays function that does require a parameter in milliseconds. Size of sword, honestly it is like 0.1. Okay, that is like 10%. So I'm going to be setting it to be 16, ending with a semicolon. And that's technically pretty much it for my main function. So now I'm going to go ahead and exit outside of my main function and add a comment that says something like cleanup. Now for my cleanup, firstly I want to destroy my window. So I'm going to go with something like SDL underscore destroy window, which does require parameter of my window ending with a semicolon. Did I spell destroy wrong? There we go, I think that's correct. And now once I'm done destroying my window, I do want to destroy my renderer as well. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore the destroy renderer function, which does require parameter of my renderer ending with a semicolon. And then I want to quit my SDL, so I'm going to go with SDL underscore quit. There we go. Okay, and lastly, I'm going to return 0, say everything went smoothly up till here. Okay, now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So I get my first window pop up, waiting for my second window. Let's see. Okay, so I get my second window right here. Hope you guys can see the whole thing. Okay, I have a sword that does move using key controls. Oh, I actually forgot to add traps, so like my sword can exit my window. I might have to like add some clamping here. But it does exit my window here. Maybe later I will be adding gravity, but for now I do gotta add a square as well that does something when I like have collision logic type stuff. Okay, so for that, once I'm done drawing my sword, I'm gonna add a comment here. Guys, there we go. Let's go ahead and delete that. Okay, now I'm gonna add a comment here that says something like trap sword or trap in window. Let's say something like trap in window. Okay, so this is gonna basically be me trapping my sword on my window or my PNG on my window. I could do that with an if statement, so I'm gonna go with something like if a of parentheses. Let's say something like if my sword dot rect dot let's say something like width is greater than, let's say something like my, I don't have floor, right? So I might go with something like my windows is width. Then I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna be setting my sword dot rect dot width to be equal to, let's go with something like my windows is width plus, let's say something like my sword dot rect dot okay, actually this should be x-axis, not width. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna change this to be width. So, and then I'm gonna end this with a semicolon. Basically what this means is if my rectangles' x-axis is greater than, let's go with 0. Okay, if it's like more than 0, if it passes 0, then I'm gonna be setting that equal to 0 plus my sword's width. So it's not gonna exit my window. Let me actually check if this part works. So let's hit Control S to save the code and run the command. Let's see what happens. So I get my window popped up here. If I go to the left, okay, I mean I am like kind of clamped up to like the right and left, so I can go either to right or left. I can just go like up and down. Okay, maybe to fix that I could change this to be less than. Okay, and let's change that to be minus. Okay, now for it, Control S to save the code and run the command. Let's see what happens. Okay, let's see. So I get my window popped up here. Okay, lol, I was about to say, what are you doing, bro? What? Honestly, I am like trying to, move my sword slash my PNG around using key controls. I'm trying to add clamping. Okay, that did not work. Hold up, maybe I shouldn't have like changed that to like minus. Okay, now let's try it. So I have my sword here. He can go to the left. Okay. He can go to the right. Okay, I see the left does work. Okay, although it does like spawn me back up here. Maybe I set my position equal to 0 instead of my width. Alright guys, I think this might work. So if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, this should definitely work. Okay, now if I go back, there we go. Okay, I shouldn't have set it to width. Now he's kind of clamped up here. instead of 0, I might change this equal to something like -100, because I feel that might look much better visually. If I hit Control S to save the code again and run the command, let's see what happens. Okay, now my sort should be able to go more to the left. Alright guys, I think -50 would be good. Okay, let's try changing this to -50. And guys, these are like hard coding numbers, but I feel like it is like pretty good when it comes to visuals. Okay, let's see. So, okay, that's actually perfect. Now okay, perfect. I don't like completely exit the window, but I'm kind of to the end of my window. Okay, now let's work with the right side. Okay, yes, equal to 0. You haven't coded for right. No, I haven't like actually coded yet, but I'm gonna do that right now. Okay, your coding skills are good. Honestly, I appreciate you, Gaya. Okay, Sensei time, guys. Honestly, I feel like I just use Sensei when it's like a new topic. I will be using Sensei/strategy before like the collision logic because I didn't like actually learn how to do that. That said, now I'm gonna check if my sort.rect.x-axis is either greater than my width, which is my window's size. Then I'm gonna do something. I'm firstly gonna set my sort.rect.x-axis to be equal to, let's say something like my window's width minus 50. Okay, ending with a semicolon. Now, if I hit Control F to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So I get my window here. If I go to the right, okay, I do still exit my window from here. Hold up, maybe in that case I remove the -50 from here. Okay, let's go ahead and hit Control to save the code and run the command again, because I do gotta add like minus my swords width as well. Okay, this does not like completely stop me, honestly. Okay, it does stop me. Okay, but that is kind of off the window, so I just gotta subtract this with my sort.rect.width. Okay, now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, this should work. Okay, I'm newbie. Are you using Python? Honestly, no, I'm using C++. That's it. Now if I get my window here, if I go towards the right, it's gonna stop me as soon as I hit the width here. Okay, I do loop here. What is the mistake that I keep doing in this part? Okay, instead of going with something like minus, I'm gonna go with something like plus. Now if I hit Control is to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Which programming language it is? Honestly, it is C++. I'm like learning on how to use SDL3 using C++. That's it. Now if I go to the right. Okay, maybe that didn't work. Hold up. What is something that I'm messing up here? Let's see. So I'm checking my sort.rect.x-axis. I check if it's greater than my width. If it is greater than my width, maybe I go ahead and check something like plus my sort.rect.width. There we go, and this is going to be minus. Guys, I think that just jogged my memory up. This should definitely work. So now if I hit Control is to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Okay, now I should be stuck here. There we go. Okay, perfect. Although I do want to go a bit more to the right, so I might actually add a few hard changes. So I might go with something like my sort.rect.width. Let's say something like plus 20. Okay, and then now if I hit Control S to save the code, let's see what happens. Okay, so now if I were to go all the way here, can I see key handler if you don't mind? Honestly, I don't mind. Hold up. Okay, I think this should be pretty much it. I might just remove the 20 from here. Hold up, guys. Let's go ahead and remove that. Okay, and the key handler is like up here. So firstly, I did create like a few boolean variables here, and then in my event loop, I checked for a few cases if my key type is down, and then a few more cases if my key is currently not being pushed down. Then I went with a few if statements to do something if like a certain key is being pushed. Okay, yes, exactly. Okay, perfect. Now once I'm done with this, I'm gonna add another if statement, this time for my y-axis. So I'm gonna go with something like if my sort.rect.y-axis, let's say something like is less than -50, then I'm gonna do something. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add a pair of curly braces here, and then I'm gonna go with something like sort.rect.y-axis is gonna be equal to -50, ending with a semicolon. Okay, and while I'm at it, I might add another if statement for like my final condition here. So I'll go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say if my sort.rect.y-axis plus my sort.rect.height is greater than my Window's height. So I'm gonna go with my height variable. Then I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna go with something like my sword dot rect dot, let's say something like y-axis is going to be equal to my height variable minus my sword dot rect dot height. Okay, then I ended with a semicolon. Now, if I hit control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Okay, I get my window here, so let's get it all the way here. Okay, yeah, width minus height should be able to do left or right. That actually does make sense. Why does C++ look so easy? I swear I'm being C++, it looks crazy. Your code is very neat. Honestly, I appreciate you, the careful. Honestly, I do actually try to make my, keep my code kind of neat. Okay, that's it. Let me go ahead and delete that because apparently something was kind of messed up here. Hold up, guys. Okay, so sort.rect.y-axis plus sort.rect.height. If it's greater than my height, okay, I go with something like, okay, I went with like y-axis, right? Is there something that's wrong with my this condition here? So if I delete that and I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see, can I move from here? So I get my window up here. I can move. Can I go upwards? Okay, I don't get, okay, I do get kind of blocked if I go up. So that part's correct. Okay, if I go towards the right, I get blocked. If I go downwards, I don't get blocked because I didn't like add a check for going down. Okay, was I messing up with some of my lower checks? So I could go with something like if my sort.rect.y-axis, I'm checking if it's greater than my Windows's height. Maybe the place where I messed up was I had to check if my sort.rect.y-axis plus my sort.rect.height is greater than my Windows's height. Then I'm gonna go ahead and do something. Firstly, I'm gonna set my sort.rect. What up, guys? I'm gonna check my sort.rect.y-axis. If it's, I'm gonna set that equal to my Windows's height minus my sort.rect.height. Okay, and then I'm gonna end it with a semicolon. Now, if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Okay, I can move. If I go upwards, I do get blocked up here. In case you guys can't see, let me get that a bit here. There we go. I can get that all the way up there. Can I get it lower? Okay, I do get blocked. Alright guys, the clamping works. We're good here. Okay, now that I'm done with the clamping, I do want to add a separate shape on my screen as well because I do want to work with the collision logic. There are two things that I could do. I could create another class for another object, or I could create a shape. What do I want to do? Maybe I want to create another class. So instead of actually manually typing my whole class, I could just go ahead and copy this class because everything is going to be the same from this class. And then I'm going to go ahead and paste that class here. I'm just going to be changing my sword class to my shield class. Okay, and let's change my sword image to a shield image. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Let's go ahead and change my swords' constructor to my shields' constructor. Okay, and then I'm going to change my sword image to my shield image. Change the sword image's texture to shield image's texture. Let's change all that stuff. I'm going to be leaving my rect exactly the same. And that's pretty much it. Now, I go all the way down here to my create objects and let's create a shields' object now. This is going to be having a shields' constructor. Are you just testing or are you building a game? Honestly, I am learning on how collision detection works. Although I haven't started with the collision detection. I am 44 minutes in the stream. It took me 40 minutes to actually write this code. But once I'm done with this, I'm going to be using Sensei/ChatGPT to learn on how to actually implement collision logic here. Okay, that said, I'm going to be requiring a parameter of my render. The size is going to be 0.1. And, excuse me guys, ending with a semicolon. This time take knife instead of sword possible. Honestly, I did not draw a knife PNG though. I do actually want to draw PNGs. Maybe once my college is over, I will be drawing multiple more PNGs. For example, for my main game, which actually for my main goal, which is basically at the end of my programming for 250 series, my goal is to make a game in general that consists of AI logic. I will definitely draw more PNGs for that day. Okay, render shield image. Honestly, I was gonna render it right now. So under my graphics, I'm gonna go ahead and use the shield.speedDraw method with a parentheses that does require a render parameter. And then I'm gonna end it with a semicolon. And guys, I kinda just remembered. Under my shields class, I'm gonna be changing my position. So instead of 100, I'll go with 500. And 400 is gonna remain the same. Now, if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So, okay, I get my shield PNG. I get another sword. My bad, guys. I forgot to change the file path, so my file path is going to be shield.png. Okay, you're doing good shit now. Honestly, I appreciate you, Shushroot. Is that how you pronounce your name? That actually means a lot to me. That's it. Now if I save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. There we go, guys. This is kind of a classic shield because I'm not that good with drawing. But I do have a shield here. My shield does not move with key controls, but I didn't want it to move with key controls as well. I just wanted to like add a shield here, so now I can work on adding my collision logic. Although I do not know how to add collision logic, so I'm going to be copying my entire code. Let's get Sensei slash ChatGPT here. Now we go ahead and do the stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this here and say something like, let's say I've added PNGs and also key controls, but now can you teach me on how to add collision logic question mark? Okay, now this is the part that's going to be actually confusing. Maybe not really confusing, but like slightly confusing. That's it, people. You did good, but now we step into real combat. You get your chat ready because we're going to take your rec collision and evolve it into something meaty. First, listen, you cannot do pixel perfect collision until you already have rec collision working. That is the foundation, the bones. Pixel collision is the muscle you put on later. Okay, honestly, I was planning to like learn pixel perfect collision, but the reason I'm not doing it is because when like we have bigger PNGs and everything, it makes it like really hard for like our graphics card slash our compiler to like scan over every single pixel, every single frame to check if a pixel is like hitting some other pixel. So that takes a lot of memory. That said, so we start here. I'm going to teach you rectangle collision first, and when you fully understand it, then we go for the blood-soaked final boss pixel perfect collision. For now, this is your collision logic. Okay, so we create a boolean function, actually a boolean function, okay, called check collision that has a few parameters. Okay, why not create a rect on your sword slash shield, then check collision after? Honestly, I did like create a rect for my sword and shield, so I'm working on like rectangle collisions this stream and not going for like pixel perfect collisions. That's it. I'm going to be having two parameters. The first parameter is going to be a constant parameter of my SDL's frect, which has a memory address of my first image. This is the collision for my second image, and then I return something. So I'm gonna go ahead and return out of parentheses ax. So my first ever image is x-axis. If it is less than my bx plus my second PNGs is x-axis plus its width, and then if my ax plus aw is greater than my bx, and if my ay is less than my by plus bh, okay, and if my ay plus ah is greater than my by plus, actually only my by. I think I know how this works. So it's technically whenever I'm going and checking for less than, my second object's x-axis plus width is being counted. When I go with greater than, my first object's x-axis and width is being counted. This checks if the two vects overlap, not their pixels, just the boundary boxes. Okay, now here's what you do next. After this function above the main function, after moving the sword, call it boolean collided check collision. Okay, sword.rect shield.rect. If collided, I might create like another variable here because I can tell this is going to like give me like a lot of collision text for like every collision, if that makes any sense. Before you render, that's it. You'll see the console fire when the rects touch. Okay, I might have to create something like a boolean of was collided variable, which is initially going to be set to false. Okay, and then I'm going to check something like if collided and not collided. Then I do this and I set my collided to be equal to was collided. Okay guys, I think I see how that works. So firstly, I'm gonna go all the way above my main function, and let's create another function for my collision detection. So I'm gonna create a boolean function called something like check collision, okay, with a pair of parentheses. Now, I'm gonna be hydrating my lips real quick because I feel it is kind of dehydrated. Hold up, guys. Okay, for my check collision, I'm going to be adding a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be a constant parameter of the SDL underscore FRX structure, which is going to be having, let's say something, which is going to be requiring, excuse me, a parameter, which is the memory address of my first objects is rect. And then I'm going to go with something like, was the second one a constant as well? I forgot. Oh, guys, let me check if my second object was like my second parameter. Okay, it is a constant. So I'm gonna go with something like a constant SDL underscore FREX. Okay, with let's say something like the memory address of my second object. And then I'm gonna go with the pair of curly braces and return something. Let's return a pair of parentheses. Okay, so firstly, basically what I do want to return is, let's see, I want to check, first I'm going to go with less than, so I'm going to check if my a dot x-axis is either less than my b dot x-axis plus my b dot w, and let's go with something like if my a dot x-axis plus a dot w is either greater than my b dot x-axis. Okay, and I'm gonna check if my if my a dot y-axis is less than my b dot y-axis plus my b dot height. And then I'm gonna go with another, and if my a dot y-axis plus my a dot height is either greater than my b dot y-axis. Okay, that's pretty much it for this function. Then I'm gonna go all the way down here. Hi, bro, you're Indian now. Honestly, I haven't like visited India yet. That's it. I am like really excited to visit India. I might actually stream myself. That's it. Hiding visible. I appreciate you joining the stream. Now let's scroll all the way down. So once I'm done drawing my images, and before I trap my PNG on my screen, I'm going to be adding a comment that says something like collision detection. For my collision detection, I am going to be creating, let's say, a boolean variable called something like was colliding. Okay, which is initially going to be set to false because no one has like collided just yet. That's it. Now I'm going to be adding an if statement to check something. I'm going to check if colliding. So if my colliding function if check collision function, okay, let's go with something like if check collision with a pair of parentheses, that does require two parameters. The first parameter is going to be something like my sort dot rect, okay, and the second parameter is going to be my shield dot rect. So I'm going to go with something like shield dot rect. Okay, and then let's go with something like and not was colliding. Guys, I don't know how much of this is going to be actually accurate, but I might actually try it. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and display a standard console output with an insertion operator that says something like collided exclamation with another insertion operator of a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Bro, where are you from? Honestly, I used to actually answer a lot, but many guys did say me to avoid saying that, so I did like start avoid saying that. That said, now once I'm done with this, I'm gonna go ahead and set my check collision to be equal to my was colliding. Although my check collision is a function, this wouldn't make sense here. Hold up, I just want to see if it works real quick. Okay, I want to know about you because I want to also learn game development, and I started learning making games, apps, and games using 3.javascript. That actually sounds kind of cool. Honestly, I do like whatchamacallit. For the time being, I am learning like game logic using SDL3. So if you guys do prefer actually learning it using SDL3 C++, I do have like a bunch of like streams on it. That said, let's see if I hit. Okay, there are like a lot of collisions. So the collision logic works, but the problem is I have like a lot of collisions. I want to implement my was colliding somewhere, so I could go ahead and set my was colliding actually my collision check function, okay, which does require parameter of my sword.rect and my shield.rect. Okay, this is my function, right? Check collision. Alright guys, let me copy that real quick and paste it here. There we go. To be equal to my was colliding boolean variable. Okay, and then let's go ahead and end this with a semicolon. I can't do that. What if I copy this and then paste it here? Okay, it still doesn't like work. So hold up. Let me go ahead and go with something like Control C, copy that. Hiding Lucy, I appreciate you joining the stream. Hiding Nilan, I appreciate you joining the stream. So what's your suggestion to me? Honestly, it depends. Like, which programming language do you prefer like programming with? Okay, that said, let me go ahead and paste the... Okay, maybe I think I understand where I messed up. So technically what I did here was I went with my check collision just here. So instead of going with that, let me go ahead and delete this part real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that while deleting that. And instead I'm going to go ahead and create another boolean of something like collided, which is going to be set to this, ending with a semicolon. Now I'm going to check something. So I'm going to check if collided, okay, and not was colliding. I'm going to do something. I'm going to set my was colliding boolean variable. Maybe I'm going to be setting my colliding, okay, to be or actually collided to be equal to my was colliding boolean variable. Did I spell was colliding correct? I think I spelled it wrong. Let's go ahead and copy that, paste it here. Okay, now for it control is to save the code and run the command. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I get my first window here, or my first terminal here, and my second window there. Okay, are you using autumn vertical? Honestly, I am using autumn vertical. Okay, that's it. Now, if I were to hit my shield, I get a lot of collision checks. So, instead, would it make sense if I said was colliding equal to collided? Okay, let's see. Now, if I were to hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So, I get my first terminal here. Let's get that all the way down here. And I get my second as well. Okay, let's actually get this here so we can actually see it. Now, if I were to hit, I see the collision logic more than once. Okay, in that case, I might go with something like Control C, copy that. Let's get sensei/GPT here. Let's go ahead and paste this. Go with Shift Enter and say something like sensei, I feel like I messed... Excuse me guys, I messed up a bit because my collision logic or my collision text on my console is more than once per hit. It's like 60 times per frame. Okay, I did try adding it like once per frame. People, you didn't mess up. You just made a baby mistake that every beginner makes when they first... Okay, when they first enter the collision realm, your logic for was colliding is useless the way you wrote it. Because you put it set to false inside the loop, okay, that means your condition will always be true on every frame of the collision. Put this before the while loop, so that goes before the while loop, and after my if statement I set was colliding to be is colliding. Okay, so basically I think so that was like a silly mistake. So my boolean of was colliding, it goes before my while loop. So when I actually create my main loop, before I actually do have my initial main loop, I create one more variable for collision, and then under my collision detection I copy this part, and once I'm done with my if statement I paste it here. Now for it control is to save the code and run the command. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I get my first window here and my second window here. What are you trying to do though? Honestly, this is basically what I'm trying to do. Like when I collide with a rect, it says collided here. So if I were to go all the way here and like collide a multiple times, like a bunch of times right here. But the thing is, it's not pixel perfect. I want to have like pixel perfect collision. Okay, that said, it does say collision or like collided in my console. So that's technically like the collision logic with the rects. Although I want to go with pixel perfect collision though. I feel like this is kind of sloppy though. Okay, although maybe I do understand how the regular collision logic works, I do want to go with pixel perfect really bad. What up, guys? Before that, let me check where to add my stuff. Okay, so I created this check collision function above my main loop. Okay, the thing is, do I want to write this code again or maybe learn pixel perfect? And what is colliding? Colliding is basically when, like, let's say when two objects collide. So example, my Mike's box and my lip balm, when they touch each other, that's called collision. People actually use that in like real game logic when they want to like get someone hit with a bullet, for example, or like get or like apply damage or something, or even like floor. For example, after adding gravity, my player doesn't want like infinitely fall, so he needs to land somewhere. That is technically collision when my player's bottom is currently standing or like touching the floor's bottom. If that makes any sense, that's called like collision and all that stuff. That said, I want to go with pixel perfect collision so bad. Looks like Minecraft. Honestly, it does sound kind of cool because like I'm really bad with like drawing stuff, so the best I could do was like pixel drawings. Okay, let me say something like Sensei. I feel like I understand how it works, but I really want to learn pixel perfect collision, to be honest. Can you teach me, question mark? Guys, I know pixel perfect collision might be a bad idea for now because it is kind of hard and all that stuff. But I feel it is kind of fun though. People, you really out there asking for pixel perfect collision on stream? You want to walk the path of pain, huh? Good, I'm proud of that. Fire in, you now listen closely because this topic does not hold your hand and drag you. Before we dive into pixel perfect collision, a quick mental model. Okay, let's break it down clearly, no nonsense. What pixel perfect collision actually is. Most collision systems, rectangles, circles, polygons. Pixel perfect collision says, I don't care about shapes if two actual drawn pixels overlap and both are not transparent, that's collision. Okay, bro, what is your age, my brother? Honestly, I am 17. That's it. I am going to be turning 18 really soon. My birthday is the January 5th. Kind of excited. Be patient, teacher. You need to first learn to walk before you can run, guys. That does make sense, but I feel like the regular rectangle collisions does look kind of sloppy. Maybe I try writing this code again to see if I actually understood how this part works. So, I just need to add this part. Okay, that's kind of self-explanatory. And when I create a function for my collision check, that's kind of easy as well. So I'm gonna go with Control A. Let's delete everything. Now, before I do move on to pixel perfect collision, let's see if I actually can write the collision logic on my own. So, firstly, let me start off by including IO stream, and then since I am going to be using SDL3, let's go ahead and include SDL3 as well. Can you code a Kamehameha wave? Honestly, I feel like it wouldn't be that hard if I actually do have the PNG, because the animation part isn't that hard, to be honest. Drawing the stuff is kind of hard. Bro, really be reading stuff like a pirate? Go play games, guys. That does make sense. I actually do read stuff kind of quick. That said, I'm gonna go with something like SDL3/SDL.h. So I include SDL and SDL's header files. And then say I'm gonna be using PNGs. I'm gonna be including SDL3_image. This is the SDL3's image libraries. And then I'm going to include SDL_image.h. This is the header files of the image library. And then next up, let's go ahead and create a class here. So I'm going to be creating a class. This time maybe, I don't know, for my devil image. So I'm going to go with something like devil image. Actually, my devil class with a pair of curly braces. Now, for my devil class, firstly, I'm going to be needing a protected data member. Okay, here's the thing. Do I want to add gravity as well? Honestly, actually, I might add gravity. I know it's kind of necessary for like collision stuff and everything, but I feel like it is going to be kind of fun, even like for review. So I might go with something like a class for my physics body, because basically my physics body is going to be having my jump, strength, gravity, and all that stuff. You Indian? Honestly, I don't actually think that I am like Indian. It like depends, because I do like look kind of like Indian, but like I haven't like actually been to India yet. That said, I'm gonna go ahead and create a class called physics body that does require a few parameters. Let's say it has a few protected data members. Okay, so the first protected data member is going to be something like x-axis underscore velocity, which is going to be set to 0, ending with a semicolon. Maybe a floating point for x-axis underscore velocity, which is going to be 0.0f. Okay, Mohan bhai, Okay, and then I'm gonna go with something like a floating point for y-axis underscore velocity, which is going to be set to 0.0 f as well. And then I might need something like a floating point for gravity, because I might need gravity too, which is going to be equal to, let's say, something like 0.5 floating point, ending with a semicolon. What country are you currently living in? I used to answer that much, but many of you guys did say me to avoid saying that, so I did like start avoid saying it. Okay, that's it. Now I'm gonna publicalize everything, and inside of my publicalize section, I'm gonna add a comment that says something like constructor. For my constructor, let's go ahead and create a constructor for my physics bodies as class. So I'm gonna go with something like my physics bodies as class with a pair of parentheses. Now my physics bodies as class is going to be requiring a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be a floating point of x-axis, second is going to be a floating point of y-axis, third is going to be a floating point of width, lastly, fourth is going to be a floating point of height. And then I go with a pair of curly braces. Okay, 100% bro, safety first. That actually does make sense. Okay, why are you talking like that? Like, hey, gay guys, I'm actually not gay, I'm like pretty straight. Okay, that said, guys, I'm kind of thirsty. I actually didn't realize that. Let me drink some water real quick. Okay, I just realized I'd like change that water. It kind of stinks. Okay, that's it. Now, for my physics body, let's say what other parameters might I need? Maybe my constructor is going to be, I don't know, maybe initializing these parameters. Since I am going to be initializing them, I'm going to go ahead and create a SDL underscore texture. Actually, I might not create texture. Instead, I might create a frect, which is going to be called rect, ending with a semicolon. Now, I'm going to go ahead and set my rect.x-axis to be equal to my x-axis parameter, ending with a semicolon. Rect.y-axis equals to y-axis parameter. Maybe instead, I could go with something like this rect.y-axis. Do I gotta initialize them? I don't think so. Okay, bro, please ignore those bad comments. Honestly, I should actually. Okay, why hating though? You got nothing better to do. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna go with something like rect.y-axis, which equals to y-axis, and then rect.width, which equals to my width. Lastly, rect.height, which equals to my height. And then I ended with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done filling these parameters, and what is something that my physics body might actually need? I might need like a few functions, so I could go ahead and create a void function called something like apply gravity. This function applies a gravity to me. Okay, with a pair of parentheses, that does require maybe a parameter for, let's say it requires a parameter of my floors as y-axis. And then I'm going to go with a pair of curly braces. This is going to be something like a floating point floor y-axis. Okay, now to apply my gravity, firstly, here's the basic rules. We go ahead and increase our speed by our acceleration. So I'm going to increase my y-axis velocity by my gravity. And then we increase our position. So my rect.y y-axis is going to increase by my speed. So y-axis underscore velocity. Okay, this guy sits behind a screen typing whatever he/she wants because there aren't any repercussions. That actually does make sense. Hey brother, what are you developing? Honestly, I am like learning the basics of like SDL3 C++. Today I am going over like collision logic. I did want to go over pixel perfect collision, but I feel like I can't like rush over, so I am like mastering regular rect-based collisions and like PNGs, and then I will move on to pixel perfect collisions. Okay, so this basically applies my gravity. Now I gotta add something for landing so my PNG doesn't like infinitely fall down. So to add a landing, I could check if my rect.y-axis is let's say something like either greater than or equal to, let's say something like my, excuse me guys, my floor.y-axis, then I'm going to do something. Okay, let's go with something like floors as y-axis, then I'm going to do something. I'm going to go with a pair of curly braces, and then let's set something like my rect.y-axis is going to be equal to my floors as y-axis minus my rect.height, ending with a semicolon. And then I'm going to go ahead and set my y-axis underscore velocity to be equal to 0, ending with a semicolon. Okay, writing well. Honestly, I appreciate you, Visible. Keep going, bro. I appreciate you, all or nothing bowling. Okay, damn, that's unique. You should create a full-time project, and it actually does make sense. Okay, bro, I'm getting motivated from your hard work. Honestly, I appreciate you, Visible. I get motivated because of you guys as well. Okay, that's it. Now, once I'm done creating a apply gravity method, I might actually need another, another void method for like my jump strength as well, because I won't be adding key controls to make my player fly up. Instead, I want them to jump for a split second. So I might go with something like jump and then add a pair of parentheses, which does require a floor versus y-axis. Okay, now for my jump strength, this is going to be a floating point floor. Okay, what's rect? Rect is basically like a rectangle because like all our PNGs inside, like you guys could like take an example of my Pikachu PNG here. So let's pretend my Pikachu here is like the object and my entire box is the rect around it. So my Pikachu is sealed inside the object. My rectangle is invisible unless I don't color it. So if like two rects actually hit each other, that's like a collision. Okay, so now for my jump, what do I want to do for my jump? When does my player actually jump? I want to check if my player is on ground before my player jumps. So I could go ahead and create something like a boolean of is on ground to check if my player currently is on ground. Okay, what are you studying right now in career? I mean, your qualifications. Are you in college? Honestly, I am in college, but that said, I did not take like any programming courses because this is like my first year. I'm like a freshman in college. That said, bro, you're doing well. I'm just happy seeing you doing these stuffs. Honestly, I appreciate you, Visible. That actually means the world to me. Yeah, true. Your motivation. Am I actually? Okay, that said, my boolean is on ground function is going to be requiring a floating point parameter, which is going to be my floor versus y-axis. Okay, let's go ahead and change this to something like float of y-axis. Okay, once I'm done with that, what else would I need? Bro, please can you tell your education history? Honestly, I don't like have like a huge education history because I did like homeschool for a long time and then now I did start college. But I am kind of excited like be done with my first semester with like a 4.0 GPA because that's kind of cool. Hey bro, I subscribed. I'm gonna head out. Good luck with the rest of your stream and learning. Honestly, I appreciate you sticking through the stream. The Calfe, is that your pronunciation name? I'll get you next stream. Okay, that's it. Now for boolean is ground. To check if I really am on ground, I want to do something. I'm gonna check something. So if a pair of parentheses, if my rect dot y-axis is either greater than or equal to my floor. Okay, if my rect dot y-axis is equal to is either greater than or equal to my floor versus y-axis, then I'm on ground. So instead of going with if, I could just return this. Let's return true if this condition is set to true. Then I ended with a semicolon. Okay, I'm gonna go with something like minus my rect dot height. Okay, if that condition is true, then my user is currently on my ground. And now for my jump, I'm gonna check something. Let's go with something like if is on ground. Is this kind of true? What's the highest GPA you can get? The highest GPA we can get is like 4.0. That said, a wide jump. So for my jump, I want to go ahead and increase my or set my y-axis underscore velocity to be equal to, let's say, something like my jump strength. So I might change that to be a floating point of power. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and set this equal to negative power, ending with a semicolon. There we go. That I just needed that to jog my memory real quick. Okay, bro, how are you typing so fast and how can you remember what you enter fast? I feel like I'm actually typing slow. Does that actually consider fast? Okay, hey brother, what are you building up? Honestly, I am actually learning about how collision logic work in SDL3. Collision is basically when one stuff it touches the other stuff. That's considered a collision. Okay, I think this is pretty much it for my physics body. So I'm gonna go ahead and create another class. This time for my next class. Let's see. Okay, what class would I actually want to create? Okay, so now let's say my second class is gonna be my devil class. Although my devil class does inherit all the public content from, let's say, something like my physics body class. Okay, then I'm gonna go with the pair of curly braces. How did you build? How did you build your logic in coding? So far as I know, C++ is pretty hard. Honestly, I would say like C++ isn't that hard if you guys actually understand the logic. Cause first when I did like start learning C++, I did like use AI, so that helped me like actually understand the concepts. Cause like AI is a great learning tool. Although many of you guys did recommend me like reading the docs or watching tutorials, but I did like feel like tutorials doesn't help me much. The thing that did actually help me much was like actually writing the code, so I understood how it works. And once you understand how the code works, I feel it is like pretty easy to actually build the logic up. Bro, what is void? Void is technically when you don't want a return type. For example, if I have void here, I don't got to return something inside of my method. But since this is not a void method and this is a boolean method, I do return the stuff. If it was a void, then I wouldn't have to return the stuff. Okay, so next up, for my devil class, I'm gonna go ahead and let's say create something like a private data member. Let's say I want to create a private data member of my SDL's texture. This texture is going to be called something like devil image, ending with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and publicize everything. Now, once I publicize everything, I'm going to be creating a constructor. So I'm going to add a comment that says something like constructor. There we go. Now, for my constructor, when did you start coding? Honestly, I started C++ about like 69 days ago. Although I did start SDL, I think it's been like 2 weeks since I started SDL. Okay, did your professor teach you all this in college? Honestly, no, I just like learned this using ChatGPT because like I did not like start taking any programming courses just yet. That's it. Now for my constructor, let's go ahead and do something. Firstly, I'm going to be creating a devil constructor. And now my devil constructor is going to be requiring a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be a parameter for my renderer. Okay, this is going to be a renderer's is, let's say something like local variable. The second parameter is going to be a floating point for scale. This is going to be how big or like what's the size going to be of my devil. Are you going to start DSA as well? Maybe after like my programming for 258 years, I might actually like start DSA, or like it depends on like what new what you may call it what new goal that I have. Because for now, my goal by the end of my 258 years is to make a game in general that consists of AI logic in it. That said, okay, once I'm done creating my constructor here, I'm gonna go ahead and let's see, do I gotta initialize something? Okay, I might just need these parameters. Do I need... Okay, would I need more parameters here? So, I might need a x-axis, y-axis, width and height as well. So... Oh, actually, this might not be my renderer. This might be my SDL underscore texture. Would I need my texture? I could try it. So I'll go with SDL underscore texture. Okay, which other coding languages can you code in? Honestly, I did like learn Python as well. I feel like Python was a pretty fun programming language. Okay, bro, I've been coding for around 5 years. You should follow a roadmap. Honestly, I do have a roadmap for like SDL, actually for like C++. If you guys do want the roadmap, you guys could like, what you may call it, join the Discord and mention me there. I could like send it to you guys. Okay, so it does not... Okay, my constructor. It might actually require a parameter of my, let's say, renderer, so I might delete that real quick. Alright guys, there we go. Okay, and then I'm gonna add a colon there. Now, since I do, what you may call it, inherit from my physics body class, I'm gonna be creating a constructor for my physics body class as well. Okay, now my physics body class's constructor does require a few parameters. The first is going to be x-axis, y-axis. What am I going to be setting my x-axis and y-axis to be? Let's think. I could go with something like, let's say 100 by 400. Okay, the width and height is going to be 0 and 0. And then I go with the row of curly braces. Now, inside of my constructor, firstly, I'm going to be, let's say, loading my image. So I might go with something like my devil image, which is going to be equal to my image underscore the load texture function. Okay, and then I'm going to go with the row of curly braces. Now, my load texture function does require two parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer. The second parameter is going to be the file path of my image. Okay, bro, you in college, but now I'm also 17 years old, but my school life takes 3 years more to complete. And after 3 years, I'll go to college. Why this difference between you and me? Honestly, probably because I did like homeschool. I mostly taught everything. I taught myself most of the stuff that we study in school. and then I just like wrote an entrance exam and then got into college type stuff. That said, I'm gonna go with something like assets slash, let's say something like my devil.png. So this is going to be my file path, and then I'm going to go ahead and end my entire function with a semicolon. Now once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and let's say scale my image as well, because I don't want my image to be really big. To do that, I could go ahead and, bro, how much time do you invest in coding or learning daily? I could say like I learned almost the entire day, because like I do have college stuff as well, but it's not like programming related, because the only time I can program right now is when I stream. So, like you guys could like see how long I stream every single day. That's the amount of time I program every single day. That said, maybe once my college is over, I will like program more a day. That said, I'm gonna go ahead and create a floating point for my textures as width and my textures as height, ending with a semicolon. Now let's use the SDL underscore the get texture size function. This function is gonna get my textures as size, but it does require a few parameters. The first parameter is gonna be my texture, which is technically my devil image. The second parameter is going to be the memory address of my textures as width. The third parameter is going to be the memory address of my textures as height, ending with a semicolon. Bro, which entrance exam did you pass to go to college? Guys, I don't think I can actually say that, because you guys would know the exact state that I'm in if I said that. Okay, that said, once I'm done with that, I'm gonna go ahead and let's say fill in a few parameters for my rect. So I'm gonna go with something like rect.width is gonna be equal to my textures as width multiplied by my scale, ending with a semicolon. And then my rect.height is gonna be my textures as height multiplied by my scale, ending with a semicolon. You're too intelligent, love you, bro. Honestly, I appreciate you, visible, guys. I think I'm the complete opposite. I feel like I'm kind of stupid. That said, once I'm done adding these parameters, is there something else that I might need? I might not need anything else for my devil's constructor, so I'm gonna exit outside of my constructor. And then let's say I might create a void function called something like draw. My draw function is going to be requiring a parameter of my renderer, so I'm going to go with something like render with an asterisk to a render variable, and then I go with the row of curly braces. Now, inside of my draw function, I'm going to go ahead and use the SDL underscore render textures as function. This function basically tells my renderer to draw a texture on the screen, although it does require a bunch of parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer. The second parameter is going to be my texture name, which in this case is my devil image. The third parameter is going to be a source rect. Since I don't have a source rect, I'm going to set that equal to null PDR. Lastly, the fourth parameter is going to be the memory address of my rectangle. And then I'm going to go ahead and end this function with a semicolon. Which language? Honestly, it is C++. Do you play any games or just learn and code the whole day? Honestly, I used to play Roblox. That's it. I feel like I don't feel games fun anymore ever since I like started my programming series and all that. I feel like I waste time when I play them, but I should actually start playing some more games. That's it. Next up, let's go ahead and once I'm done creating my classes, I'm going to create a function to check my collision detection as well. Maybe I'll create that later. So I'm going to be creating a main function right now. Okay, before I create my main function, do I just want a devil PNG? Maybe not, maybe not. I might create another class, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that class, paste it all the way here. The reason I am like creating another class is because I want to have like two PNGs on my screen. Let's say the first PNG is like devil. My second PNG could be something like sword. So I might go with something like a sword class that inherits from my physics body class. This is going to be my swords constructor. This is going to be my sword underscore image. There we go. Let's go ahead and copy that. Paste my sword image here. Whoops, gonna copy that, paste that here. Let's paste my sword image here. Let's change my file path from devil to be sword. And then let's change my sword image here as well. And that's pretty much it for my classes. Okay, what are you creating? Any game or what? Honestly, I am like creating a basic game in SDL3 that does require like collision logic in it. That said, what are you making? I'm actually just making a basic game and adding collision logic to it. Okay, that's actually pretty much it. Now, let's go ahead and create a main function. So I'm going to go with integer main, add a pair of parentheses. Now, my main function is going to be requiring two parameters. The first parameter is going to be an integer of argc. The second parameter is going to be an array, which is technically going to be a pointer towards an array of argv. Okay, then I go with the proper curly braces. Now, inside of my main function, I'm going to be using an if statement to initialize my SDL and also check if my SDL was not initialized properly. So I'm going to go with something like if a pair of parentheses, let's say if not SDL underscore init, SDL underscore init underscore video. This basically says that if my SDL's video section is not initialized properly, then I'm going to display myself an error message. So I'm going to go with a standard C error with an insertion operator and say something like, I got a SDL underscore init error. Okay, and once I display an error text, I'm going to use the function that actually gets me an error. So I'll use the SDL underscore get errors as function with a pair of parentheses. And then let's go with a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Okay, you're so inspirational. Honestly, I appreciate you, bro, but you guys are kind of inspirational to me. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and return one saying something is wrong in this block of code. Go check it out. What up, guys? There we go. Okay, does this also happen to you? Like, if you learn a language and learn another language, I forget the basics of the first one. Honestly, I'd say the only reason that might actually happen is because you didn't learn the first language properly, because I'd say the basics are almost the same within like all languages. The only thing that is different is like the syntaxes, because the reason I felt like C++ really easy because I used to learn Python, then from Python I did move on to C++. The reason I did feel C++ easy is because I really understood how Python works. So like the basics of while loops, for loops, lists, sets, collections and all that stuff. When I moved on to C++, I just had to get used to a new function syntax and all that stuff, but everything was mostly the same. Are you creating a logic from your slide? I mean, are you creating something before? What is the way you put language knowledge, particularly by applying it? How? Honestly, I feel like I am like creating the logic like from the very basic, like from the scratches and everything. So for example, for my logic, I would of course need to create classes. For example, a physics body class, this is not important, but instead of having a apply gravity for both my shapes separately or for both my objects separately, that would be extra lines of code. I compressed that and added it into one class. Now that one class, now different classes can inherit from that one class to get like the is on ground check, to get the jump method, and to get the apply gravity method. So I wouldn't have to create the apply gravity function every single time. And then I just create a few derived classes slash child class that inherits from my parent class. Okay, I mean, using ChatGPT, etc. How do you create your project, your first project? Honestly, I do use ChatGPT a lot when it comes to learning, because I feel like it's gonna almost be impossible to learn if you don't know the basics. Anything that helps you understand the basics, because once you understand the basics, I feel the rest logic part does get kind of easier. Okay, that said, now I'm gonna be adding a comment that says something like game variables. For my game variables, I'm gonna be requiring a few basic variables. The first basic variable is gonna be a constant integer of my width, which is technically my Windows's width. I'm gonna set that equal to 1000 ending with a semicolon. Okay, what will be your advice for absolute beginners who just know basic language but didn't create projects yet? I would recommend you guys to like create projects like as much as you can, because the more you guys actually create project, the more you guys understand how the project works, and the more you guys can add you guys' own logic to that current logic. Even like if you guys do copy the first code, I would recommend not actually like copy pasting it. I would recommend typing it out so you guys actually have the muscle memory to type it out. Okay, this is the best thing I watched today. Honestly, I appreciate you, Robert. That actually means the world to me. Okay, I mean, don't know where to start from. Honestly, I would recommend starting from the very basics, like how to create variables and all that stuff. If you guys do know that basics, I would like recommend you guys to actually see. For example, if you guys like prefer AI slash machine learning, you guys could like try a few basic projects on AI slash machine learning. If you guys try game development and you guys are learning Python, I would recommend starting Pygame. If you guys are learning C++, C Sharp, or C, I would recommend learning SDL, because that is like basically really good for the game development. It's like a bit harder than like regular game engines, but I feel regular game engines make stuff really easy for us. So I would recommend learning how to code as well. Okay, like following online projects. Honestly, I feel like by online projects, do you mean like tutorials? Because I feel like I don't think tutorials do like help me much. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and say something like create window and renderer. You mean the word to me, guys? That actually means the word to me. Okay, so I'm gonna add a comment that says create window and renderer. Now, to create my window and renderer, I'm going to be requiring two local variables. The first local variable is going to be my SDL underscore windows structure, which is going to be having a window local variable that is a pointer as well. I'm going to set this equal to null PTR ending with a semicolon, and then I'm going to create one for my renderer as well. So I'll go with SDL underscore renderer, which has a local variable of my renderer set to it. Okay, and then I'm going to set that to null PTR. Now that I've created both the local variables that I might need, let's use the function that actually creates both my window and my renderer at the same time. So I could go ahead and use the SDL underscore create window and renderer function. This function creates both my window and renderer at the same time, although it does require a bunch of parameters. The first parameter is going to be a title / a caption for my window. I could go ahead and say something like SDL3 window created. Okay, and then the second and third parameter is going to be my window's width and height, which is technically the width variable and the height variable that I created. Okay, and then the fourth parameter is going to be a Windows flag. If you guys don't want to add a flag, you guys could like go with 0. But I do want to add a flag that makes my window resizable. So I could go with something like SDL underscore window underscore resizable. There we go. Okay, once I'm done adding my flag, I'm going to be needing the memory address of my window local variable and my renderer local variable. So I'm going to go with something like the address of operator for window and the address of operator for my renderer local variable. And then let's go ahead and end my entire function with a semicolon. For absolute beginners who know basics, so what is the first step to make this happen? Practically following tutorials, creating logic, and problem solving all matters, but what's the next step? Honestly, I wouldn't like actually recommend a step without knowing what you guys actually want to do. If you guys do want to be like a software developer and like make games, understand game logic, then I would recommend using stuff like SDL3, Python, and all that stuff to make games. But I wouldn't know much for like if you guys want to create chatbots and all that, because I haven't like created that just yet. But I would recommend if like tutorials does help you guys, I would recommend watching tutorials and like practicing a lot. If tutorials does not help you guys, I would recommend going to AI and like actually learning the stuff that you do want to learn. But a quick caution, don't get really dependent on AI. Just use AI to learn. Once you're done learning and you understand the basics, don't get lazy and copy the code the next time you try writing it. Just like type it out, because there's always like stuff that you guys realize later that you guys did when you guys actually typed it out the first time that made any sense. That said, now that I'm done creating my window and my renderer, I'm going to be checking if they were not created properly, because apparently in C++ you do gotta check if like if our function was not working properly. So I'm going to go ahead and check if not window, if my window was not created properly, or if not a renderer, if my renderer was not created properly, then I'm going to do something. I'm going to go with a pair of curly braces and then display myself an error message. So I'm going to go with a standard C error with an insertion operator that is going to say something like SDL underscore create window and renderer error. So this function actually gets me a window and renderer error. Okay, and then let's go ahead and use the function that actually gets me an error. So I'm going to go with something like a standard, let's see something like SDL underscore get error function. This function actually gets me an error. Then I'm going to go with an insertion operator of a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Now, if either my window and my renderer was not created properly, firstly, I want to quit my SDL. So I'm going to go with SDL underscore quit with a pair of parentheses ending with a semicolon. And then I'm going to go ahead and return 1 saying something is wrong with this block of code. Check it out. Okay, once I'm done creating my window and renderer and checking if they were not created properly, I'm going to do something. Firstly, let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like, I don't know, maybe create objects. This is going to be where I actually create my objects. I have 2 objects to create. The first object is for my devil class, so I'm going to create a devil's object with a pair of parentheses. That does require 2 parameters, my renderer's parameter and a size, which I'm going to be setting to 0.1. Okay, and the second parameter is going to be from my start class, which is going to be something like a start object with a pair of parentheses. That is going to be set to something like start. Actually, my bad guys. That is going to be requiring a renderer's parameter and then a size which is set to 0.1 ending with a semicolon. Okay, now that I'm done creating my objects, I'm going to go ahead and create my main loop. For my main loop, I'm going to be needing a bunch of variables. The first variable is going to be a boolean variable. For something like is running, this checks if my program is currently running. I'm going to set that equal to true because I do want my program to run when I actually run my game. Okay, do you know you're pretty good at what you're doing? Most people of your age just do things for grades in college and forget later. Okay, but you're actually enjoying coding. That's motivational. That actually means a lot to me, Mohan. That actually does make sense though, because I do like actually see that. Like in my college, they're all like, and I like do that same thing as well. Because like in college, they don't teach us that much or the whole lot. That's the reason they expect us to learn stuff at home. So like college, I would say is just for grades, but the real grinding happens at home when you're actually learning stuff. I feel it's going to be much easier in the future if like we struggle right now and learn the stuff that we actually do want to learn. That said, I'm going to go ahead and use the SDL underscore events structure, which is going to be having a event local variable representing it. After that, since I am going to be having key controls as well, I might create a few more boolean variables to check if any of my keys are currently being pushed down. Firstly, I might check something like if my A is currently being pushed down. Since my A button is currently not being pushed down, I'm going to set it to be false. And then I'm going to check if my D is being pushed down. Since my D is currently not being pushed down, I'm going to set this to be false as well. Okay, if I can ask how old are you? You look very young and you know a lot. Honestly, I am actually 17 years old. That's it. I am going to be turning 18 really soon. Kind of excited for that. My birthday is the January 5th. I honestly might not have a special stream for that. Because guys, I feel like I don't even celebrate my birthday nicely these days. Okay, that said, I'm gonna go with something like W down, which is initially gonna be set to false as well, because I don't want my W, because my W is currently not being pushed down. And lastly, I'm gonna go with something like S down, which is gonna be set to false as well, ending with a semicolon. Okay, and since I am going to be adding collision logic as well, I might create another boolean value called something like, I don't know, was colliding. There we go. This checks if I was colliding before because I want my collision to happen just once per hit. Okay, I'm going to be setting that equal to false because I did not collide with anyone yet. And I'm thinking before I do create my main loop, I might exit outside of my, my main function. And I might go ahead and create, let's say, another function. This function is technically a function for my collision check because I don't want like specifically type this out every time I want to like have a collision logic for like one object and the other object. So I might go with something like check collision. Okay, so I'm going to create a check collision function that does require two constant variables. The first constant variable is going to be something like a constant SDL underscore frect, which is going to be the memory address of my first objects is rect. And then I'm going to go with something like a constant SDL underscore frect. Excuse me guys, there we go. Which is going to be the memory address of my object B's rect. And then I go with the pair of curly braces. Now, inside my function, I'm going to go ahead and return something. Okay, let's see. Let me go ahead and end this with a semicolon here as well. Okay, now I'm going to be adding a check. So, firstly, I might go ahead and check something like if my object A's x-axis is less than my object B's x-axis plus my object B's width. And I'm going to go ahead and check something like if my object A's x-axis plus my object A's width is either greater than my object B's x-axis. And then I'm going to go with another, and if my object A's y-axis is less than my object B's, let's say something like y-axis, my object B's y-axis plus my object B's height. And lastly, I'm going to go with another, and if my object A's y-axis plus my object A's height, okay, plus my object A's height is either greater than my object B's, let's say something like y-axis, then I'm going to go ahead and end my entire function with a semicolon. That's pretty much it for square collision. It's honestly not that hard. Okay, did you learn neural nets in Python? Neural nets in Python. Honestly, I haven't like started that yet. That's it, you're enjoying coding, bro. How's your health nowadays? I feel like it is pretty good. It was like really hard to stream back when my throat was actually swollen. It was actually killing me back then, but now it feels like really, really good. Okay, that's it. Because before I thought that whatchamacallit, I had that swollen throat because like whatchamacallit, I used to talk a lot, but it was because I had like a viral infection. I had like a lot of blisters and pimples inside of my mouth. I honestly still do have a bit like swollen gums and everything because I couldn't like brush properly or like floss properly because of those blisters. But I feel it's getting kind of better now. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and create my main while loop now. This is gonna say something like while is running. So while my program is running, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna add a pair of curly braces, and then let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like event loop. Event loop is gonna be basically a while loop inside of a while loop, so a nested loop. This inner while loop or my event loop is gonna be in charge for looking for all my events that is actually happening or the events that I'm looking for, although it does require a parameter of the SDL underscore poll events function. My SDL underscore poll event does require a parameter. It requires the memory address of my event variable. Oh, I now your throat was... Oh, I now your throat was swollen because I saw your shorts. Oh, I see. Yeah, I did like upload that short because I was like, I won't be able to stream for a while because of my swollen throat, but I did stream while talking a bit slower. And I did have a silent stream as well. Bro is a femboy, guys. I'm actually not a femboy. That's it. The reason I didn't upload that femboy shot is because I thought it was kind of funny because apparently since the big 2025 assume my gender that I'm a she. Okay, that said, I'm gonna go ahead and add an if statement here. So I'm gonna go with something like if my event dot type equals to let's say something like SDL underscore event. There we go, underscore quit. Then I'm gonna do something. Firstly, I'm gonna add a pair of curly braces and then set my is a running boolean variable to be false, ending with a semicolon. What this basically means is if my user click the top right X button, that ends my entire while loop because my while loop only runs while is running is set to true. Okay, and honestly, I'm gonna be having a few more event checks. So I'm gonna go with my second event check. Bro, my English is not good, so please don't be angry or bored with my comment. Honestly, I'm like never angry or like bored with you guys' comment. I feel like your English is pretty good. Okay, that's it. Next up, I'm gonna go with something like if my event.type equals to SDL underscore event underscore key underscore down. So basically what this event type means is that it means if my current button on my keyboard is being held downwards. If it is, then I'm gonna do a few things. Firstly, I'm going to use switches. If you guys like don't prefer using switches, you guys could like use an if statement. I feel switches look kind of cool though. That said, I'm going to look for the specific type of button that is currently being pushed down. So I'll go with something like my event.key. This looks my entire keyboard's buttons being pushed down. If I add another dot key, this looks for the exact button that is being pushed down now. Okay, then I'm going to go with the pair of curly braces. Now I'll add a few keys. Let's say if my SDL's key that is currently being pushed down is A, if my A is being pushed down, I'm going to set my A down boolean variable to be set to true because it is currently being pushed down. And then I'm going to break. And then for my second case, I'm going to check if my SDL's key that is currently being pushed down is D. Then I'm going to be setting my D down to be set to true, ending with a semicolon. And then I break. And then for my third case, I check if my SDL's key that's being pushed down is something like W. Then I'm going to be setting my W down to be true, ending with a semicolon, and then I break. Okay, bro, what is your respected name? Honestly, I am like Vivek. Hello, howdy PMA. I appreciate you joining the stream. Is this pre-recorded? Honestly, not pre-recorded. Bro, are you doing scripting in Unity? I'm also a student for game development. I'm creative but not good at coding, only 3D work. Honestly, I think I could actually do scripting if I wanna, like write codes and everything, but I feel like I'm not as good just yet. Plus, I do learn like C++, which doesn't work like in Unity, because like C# or like, I think yeah, C# is the programming language for Unity. In the other hand, C++ is like for Unreal, so maybe later on in the future, once I'm like good with SDL3, I might learn Vulkan and then maybe move on to Unreal later. Okay, and then I'm gonna go with something like if my SDL's key is S, if my S is currently being pushed down, then I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna set my S down boolean variable to be set to true, and then I break. Okay, and that's pretty much it for my event checks for if my event type, like if my button is being pushed down. Next up, I'm gonna go ahead and copy my if statement just to save time. Paste it here. For my third event loop, this is gonna be something like up this time. So now, I check if my SDL underscore event underscore key underscore up. This is basically the opposite of SDL underscore event underscore key underscore down, because the key down checks if my button is being pushed down. The key up checks if my button is no longer being pushed down. And if any of these buttons are no longer being pushed down, I'm gonna change these trues to be falses again. There we go. Okay, perfect. And that's like pretty much it for my event loops. Okay, now that I'm done with that, I'm gonna go ahead and exit outside of my event loop. There we go. Okay, and I'm gonna add a comment that says something like key controls. This is gonna be where I actually do something when my keys are set to true/false. Okay, I'm gonna change this to something like key controls. Now, for my key controls, I'm gonna be adding a few if statements. I'm gonna first add a if statement to check if my A down is set to true. If it is, I'm gonna do something. Let's say I'm gonna be increasing. Did I create my objects? Okay, I did. I'm gonna be increasing my sword dot vect dot x-axis. Let's say I'm gonna decrease it by my x-axis underscore velocity. Okay, how do I get my velocities here? Maybe I go with something like 5.0 floating points. So I'll go with something like 5.0 floating points, ending with a semicolon. Okay, and then I'm going to add another if statement to check if my, let's say something like D down is set to true. If my D is currently being pushed down, I'm going to set my store.rect.x-axis to be increasing by 5 pixels per frame, ending with a semicolon. And then I'm going to go with another if statement to check if my W is currently being pushed down. If it is, I'm going to set my sort.rect.y-axis to decrease by my y-axis underscore velocity, ending with a semicolon. Then Vivek is an Indian name. That's why people ask whether you're Indian or not. That actually does make sense. Okay, scammer, I didn't need to say it. My bad. Honestly, a good take. Okay, why do you code with C++? Honestly, the reason I did like start coding with C++ is because whatchamacallit, I did think like it is a pretty good programming language in general to like write a game with, because my main goal by the end of my programming for 250A series was to make a game in general that consists of AI logic, and I thought since I was going to be making a game, might as well like learn C++. Okay, brother, what time is it for you there? Honestly, it's almost 4 p.m. I do actually gotta end the stream soon as well, because I do gotta like study my college stuff. And I just realized since I am going to be applying gravity, I might not need my 2 boolean variables for like W and S, because those are going to be kind of necessary, because the reason I did add those is to like move my player around up and down, but since I have gravity, I wouldn't need that. Instead, I would need something like a space for like my jump strength. So I might go with something like if my SDL's key is space. Okay, if my user did click space, I'm going to do something. Firstly, I'm going to add a if statement to check something. I'm going to check if I am currently on ground. So I'm going to check if my mage, I go with actually my sword. If my sword dot is on ground function, actually method, this checks if my sword is currently on ground. I'll go with something like my floor.y-axis, but I did not create my floor.y-axis yet, so I might create that. So I might create it like once I'm done creating my game variables, I'm gonna add a comment that says something like floor. To create my floor, I'll go with something like SDL underscore frect, which is going to be having something like floor as a local variable. Can you give us your roadmap, different languages you learn in this series? Honestly, I do like have a roadmap for like C++. If you guys do want it, you guys could like join my Discord server, then mention me, because I can like DM it to you guys. Okay, have you done lead code? Honestly, I'm really holding myself back from like trying lead code, because after my programming for 250 series, I might have like a whole separate series and playlist where I do only work with like lead code. That said, I'm going to set my floor.x-axis to be equal to something like 0, ending with a semicolon, and then my floor.y-axis to be equal to something like I don't know, what should my y-axis be set to? I could go with something like 700, ending with a semicolon. My floor.width is going to be equal to my width minus, let's go with something like actually I'll go with something like width plus 50, ending with a semicolon. And then lastly, I'm going to go with my floor.height, which is going to be equal to something like 100. ending with a semicolon. Now, I go ahead and add a parameter of my floor.y-axis. Okay, so if my sword is currently on floor, then I go ahead and use the sword.the_jump method, which does require parameter of power, which I am going to be setting to -12, ending with a semicolon. Okay, that's actually pretty much it. And then I set my is on ground. Okay, honestly, I might create another boolean variable. I could do something like sword dot is on ground equals with a pair of parentheses of my floor dot y-axis. Okay, is going to be equal to okay, let's go with something like my boolean. What up, guys? Let's go with sword. And now I'm going to go with something like a boolean of on ground. There we go. Is going to be equal to my sword on ground, ending with a semicolon. Okay, now instead of going with this whole function, I could go ahead and just check if on ground. I might just check something like if on ground. There we go. Okay, if my user is currently on ground, I jump up and then I set my on ground boolean variable to be equal to false, ending with a semicolon. Okay, that's pretty much it. Okay, hello my C# idol. Honestly, I do learn C++. Can you teach more C#? Honestly, I haven't like started C# yet, but I might actually learn it. Do you watch animes or any series in your free time? Honestly, I do like watch animes because like I feel it's kind of fun, but I feel like I don't have much time right now. Maybe because my college is over and I do like make some progress in my program for 250 series. I might go hardcore in watching some animes. That said, I still do watch a lot of them. Okay, do you think you could like build a gambling website if you tried? Honestly, I wouldn't be that hard to be honest. Betting website doesn't seem too hard. Yeah, it's actually kind of easy because you just gotta add like a bunch of switches or like if statements to do something if something actually happened. That said, once I'm done with key controls, I'm gonna add a comment that says something like fill screen. So I'm gonna be filling my screen. Now to fill my screen, firstly, I'm gonna be changing the color of my let's say render. So I'm gonna be setting a color to my render. So I could go with SDL_set render. So I'm setting my renderer to draw a color. So the set render draw color function. My set render draw color function, it sets a color to my render, which is technically a paintbrush and colors what I tell it to color, but it does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be my render. The second, third, and fourth parameter is going to be an RGB value. I might go with 0, 248, and 255, which is the RGB for cyan. Lastly, I'll go with 255 for my alpha/opacity, how transparent or how not transparent I want my color to be. In this case, I want my color to not be transparent at all. Okay, what's your favorite anime? This might be kind of tough. I actually like Demon Slayer a lot. 250 days and you don't have a complete project yet, just give up ChatGPT. Isn't how you learn to code to go to school. Honestly, I do not like actually want to have a project right now because it wouldn't take me that long to really build the project. The thing that I am doing right now is learning the basics because like project is just like a goal that I set so I can actually work hard to achieve that goal. Because like when I did start the series, I know the project was pretty ambitious to like make a game that consists of AI logic in it. Although if I couldn't even do that, it's like the learnings and everything, like what all I learned while I was actually doing that project. If I did succeed at the end, that might be really cool, guys. If I didn't succeed and if I did fail, that would be like the first attempt in learning because that's what fail stands for. Okay, and that also might be kind of cool. Okay, so I could go ahead and use the render clear function. So I'll go with the SDL_render clear function with a pair of parentheses that does require a parameter of my render. The render clear function basically fills my entire screen with the renderer here. Is bro a femboy? Honestly, I'm not a femboy. Demon Slayer is too emotional, guys. I did watch like One Punch Man, but I feel like the JC staff did not have enough time to actually animate it properly, so it was kind of disappointing though. Okay, mine is solo leveling, guys. I actually love solo leveling. I watched solo leveling, I think like more than 15 or 16 times. Okay, that's it. Next up, I'm gonna add a comment that says something like graphics. School don't teach coding that good, bro. You gotta do everything on your own. They just teach theory. That's so true. Actually, like school and college in general, they don't like teach it in like depth. All the real grinding happens at home when you learn it yourself. Okay, Jesus is the Son of God. He died on the cross for our sins, and he was restricted 3 days later. Believe in Jesus, and you will not die, but have everlasting life. That does sound kind of cool. Okay, someone answer us, bro. A femboy. Honestly, guys, I'm not a femboy. All boys says, okay, all boys says is honestly still. Guys, that does make sense. Are you creating a game? Honestly, yeah, you guys could like say I'm creating like a pretty basic game that consists of AI logic in it. Later on, once I do understand all my concepts and all my logic, I am going to be adding more decorations and everything to make the game look well cool. For the time being, I'm not making the game look that cool. That's it. For my graphics, firstly, I'm gonna go with something like devil draw method, which requires the parameter of my renderer ending with a semicolon, and then I'm gonna go with something like sword.draw with a parameter of my renderer as well. Okay, and then let's scroll all the way up. I just realized something. I gotta change my sword's position. Maybe I change it later, like it doesn't because I did not add a landing for my sword. Okay, I added okay, so I added a apply gravity. Okay, if my vector y-axis. I mean, I did add a landing for my start, so I think I'll be kind of cool. Attack on Titan is best story, guys. The ending made me cry. Okay, bro, only says honestly the word. No, bro, only says the word honestly. That actually does make sense. Brother, you're a good humble streamer. Honestly, that does make sense. I appreciate you guys for that. Okay, that's it. Now, once I'm done with my graphics, I'm gonna go ahead and do something. Let's say, firstly, maybe I go with something like devil dot the apply gravity method. I apply gravity to my devil so he falls down, which does require parameter of my floors as y-axis because I did have landing as well. Okay, and then I'm going to end that with a semicolon, and then let's go with something like sword.apply gravity. So I'm going to go with sword.apply gravity. I apply gravity for my sword as well with a pair of parentheses that does require a floor.y-axis parameter ending with a semicolon. Okay, once I add gravity to them, I gotta add collision logic as well. So does gravity come first or does collision logic come first? Pretty sure gravity comes first. So now I'm gonna add a comment that says something like collision logic. Okay, now let's add a collision logic. To actually add my collision, I'm gonna be okay, did I create a variable for my okay, I created a variable for was colliding. Now I'm gonna be creating another boolean variable which says something like is colliding to check if I am currently colliding in my while loop. So my is colliding is going to be equal to my check collision function that I created up there with a pair of parentheses that does require two parameters. The first parameter is going to be my devil.rect and the second parameter is going to be my sword.rect. And then I ended with a semicolon. Okay, and then next up, I'm gonna add a if statement to check if I am colliding. So I'm gonna go with something like if is colliding and not was colliding. There we go. So if I am currently colliding, colliding. There we go. Okay, if this is true, then I'm gonna go ahead and do something. I'm gonna add a standard console output with an insertion operator that is gonna say something. Which language are you using? It's C++. Honestly, it is C++. Okay, this is gonna say something like collided. Okay, and then I'm gonna add exclamation, and then I'll go with another insertion operator of a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done with that, I'm going to be setting my was colliding to be equal to my is colliding boolean variable. Did I spell it correct? What up, guys? Let's copy that. Excuse me, guys. Paste it here, and then let's copy my is colliding and paste it here as well, ending with a semicolon. And that's pretty much it for my collision logic. Okay, once I'm done with my collision logic, I'm gonna add another comment that says something like present. I'm going to be presenting my renderer on my screen, because if I did not present my renderer, my screen is just going to be black and white. To present my renderer on my screen, I could go and use the SDL_render. I'm saying my renderer to present itself. So the render present function that does require a parameter of my renderer, ending with a semicolon. SDL, is that like OpenGL? Honestly, I haven't like tried OpenGL, but if you guys are like familiar with like Pygames in Python, it's almost the same. Although Pygames just works with Python, in the other hand, SDL3 works with C, C Sharp, C++, and maybe some other programming languages as well. So it is technically Python, but that works with like multiple programming languages. That's it. I'm gonna add FPS as well. Have you tried any training? Have you tried training any AI models? Honestly, not yet, but I do wanna actually try that because like maybe once I'm done with my C++ for 100 series, which is technically indented inside of my programming for 250 series, I am actually going to be learning on how to create a chatbot as well because I might implement that chatbot logic inside of my main game logic. So my game has NPCs that can actually chat with the user as they type. Guys, that does sound a lot for the time being because I don't know like actually how I'm going to be doing that, but I think I'll get to that when I'm actually facing that part. Okay, that's next up. For my FPS, I'm going to use the SDL underscore delay function, which does require parameter in milliseconds. I'm going to set it to be 16 milliseconds, which is technically 60 frames per second. Can you show the data slash model how database will look? Honestly, do you mean like you want me to run the code? Because I'm almost done. I'm actually going to run it like right now. Okay, that's it. Once I'm done with all that, I'm going to exit my main loop and then go with some cleanup. For my cleanup, firstly, I want to destroy my window. So I'll use the SDL underscore destroy window function. So I'm going to be destroying my window here. That does require a parameter of my window ending with a semicolon. And then I'm going to be destroying my renderer as well. So I'll go with SDL underscore destroy renderer. Okay, with a pair of parentheses that does require my renderer parameter ending with a semicolon. And then I'm going to quit my SDL ending with a semicolon. Okay, and lastly, I'm going to be returning 0 saying everything went smooth here. Now, if I were to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So I get my first window pop up here. What up guys, I get my second window as well, but apparently my okay, they do fall down with the gravity, but they are like bouncing back up. I gotta fix my landing logic real quick. Training a model, especially a chatbot, needs heck of a lot GPU power and a data. Guys, the GPU that I currently use is like the GPU which is inside of my motherboard. I might have to buy a GPU for that. You need to learn machine learning and deep learning for that, and you need lots of data. I might actually try that because I did want to go over machine learning in like Python because I will be having like 150 days still left after my C++ for 100 day series, so I might try it then. Okay, that said, let's scroll all the way up here. Okay, for my gravity, I check greater than, that's why I fall down. Okay, minus my rects. Okay, rect.y-axis, let's go with something like plus my rects. And then I'm going to go all the way down here for my devil's image. I'm going to be changing my position. I'm going to change this to be something like 500. Okay, perfect. And then now, let me scroll all the way down here up to my graphics. I'm going to be coloring my floor as well. So I'm going to be changing the color of my renderer. So I'm going to use the SDL underscore set renderer draw color function because I want my floor to be, let's say something like brown. Okay, the RGB for brown, I honestly don't remember. Let's guess this. So I'm going to go with something like renderer. I'll go with something like 48, 148, and 0. And then 235 because I don't want my ground to be transparent at all. Ending with a semicolon. Now, if I need controllers to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So I get my first window here, and I get my second window, but both my PNGs just like fell down. Because I did not use the SDL underscore renderer, I'm saying my renderer, to fill my rects. Okay, this does require two parameters. The first is going to be my renderer. The second is going to be the memory address of my floor. Okay, when a newbie enters in programming, what should focus on? One tip, please. Okay, that's actually kind of, that's actually kind of easy, I would say. It's like when someone new, like if someone is like a really beginner and they start, I would recommend them to like learn the basics like on how, how user input works, how to create variables, how while loop works, what's the difference between a while loop, a for loop, when to actually use nested loops and all that stuff. Once you're really good with that, I would recommend like writing a lot of code so you understand how to actually utilize the knowledge that you actually got from learning the basics. Okay, the way he talks is kind of funny, guys. That actually means a lot to me because, like, I did try learning a few jokes, but then I feel like those jokes are not funny, so I don't like say them on stream. Alright, man, I'm gonna go study. Now, see you in next stream. Honestly, I appreciate you sticking through the stream, Mohan. I'll catch you next stream. Okay, that's it. Now for the controllers to save the code and run the command. Let's see what happens. So, I get my window popped up here. Alright, guys, I thought my floor is going to be, gray color, but then it's apparently, I thought it's going to be brown, but it's apparently green. That's fine. Okay, they do not land. The gravity does work, though. Could it be because of my positions? What if I change this to be something like 100? So they fall from a really high speed, so I'm going to change that to 100 as well. If I were to hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So they fall from all the way up there, but they do kind of bounce here. Okay, does it move with key controls? It does move with key controls, and it does say collision. So the collision logic is correct, because every time I collide, it does say collision. Hold up, guys. There we go. You guys can see down in the terminal, it says collision every time I collide. Everything is correct except my landing logic. So let's fix my landing real quick. For my landing, I just returned this, right? That might be wrong. So okay, I might add an if statement. So let's go ahead and add something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if my rect.y-axis is greater than or equal to my floors' y-axis, then I'm gonna go ahead and do something. I'm gonna go ahead and return my rect.y-axis. Okay. I'm gonna set my rect.y-axis equal to my floors' y-axis minus my rex's height, ending with a semicolon. And now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, this should work, guys. I'm pretty sure it would. So I get my window here. Okay, it does not work. Hold up, guys. Might have to look this up. So if I were to go with something like Control A, Control C, Control A to copy, Control Z to copy everything. Let's go ahead and paste it here. Go with Shift Enter and see something like, let's say I tried writing this code on my own. It does work, although I feel like I only messed up my landing. ... Okay, let's see. People, look at me. You did all of this live under pressure while talking to chat and the game runs. Do you realize how many beginner dev students never get one? Sprite moving, okay, all that stuff. Your landing is wrong in two places. Your is on ground function is completely broken. Sensei is going to scream, people, this returns an assignment, not a boolean. It returns a floating point number. As a true/false, this is illegal in every frame of logic because you never return false anywhere. This function is cosmic nonsense. You check your ground before gravity, so on ground is updated, but it's never corrected because on ground doesn't fix your y placement. The correct way to fix it, so void gravity floating point ground. Okay, my floating point grounds is y-axis equals to my floating point y-axis minus my floating point height. Okay, and then if rect.y-axis is greater than my grounds is y-axis. Okay, rect.y-axis equals to grounds is y-axis, y-axis equals to 0. That's all. What about is ground? Make it purely a check. Okay, I did have this part before. Okay, fix in your main loop sort.apply gravity on ground equals to sort.is on ground. Okay, sensei this verdict. Okay, should I redeem it? Redeem what? Okay, or should I not? Honestly, I wouldn't know. Okay, that said, now once I'm done here with my collision logic, once I apply gravity, the thing that I messed up in was firstly that I gotta go all the way up here. Okay, for my boolean check right here, I do not need all this stuff, so I could go with like a bunch of control Z's here and just add my return type here that I had before. Okay, and then what I gotta change here is I gotta go with something like a boolean. Excuse me, guys, of on ground. Was it a boolean of on ground? I actually forgot that. Okay, so it is something like a floating point ground y-axis. Okay, so I have to go with something like a floating point of ground y-axis Okay, my floor. Actually, I might go with something like. Okay, I need to go with Brown's y-axis. So I'm gonna go with something like Brown's y-axis. So let me change that to float. Is gonna be equal to, let's say something like my floor's y-axis. Let's go with floor. Okay, minus my, I don't know, maybe, let's see, minus my rect dot height, ending with a semicolon. Now I do all that here. Okay, and the condition here. No, I was saying like, should I redeem it? Honestly, are you trying to like purchase something? Okay, so if my Rex's y-axis is greater than my ground's y-axis, that's technically the check that I have here. But instead of ground, I went with floor, so I might go with something like my ground's y-axis. Then I set my Rex's y-axis equal to my floor's y-axis minus my Rex's height. Okay, instead of going with minus, I set my Rex's y-axis to my ground's y-axis, which is technically the same as floor's y-axis minus rect.height. I mean, it is like the same exact thing, honestly. Like, adding grounded y-axis is gonna have like less typing to do. Okay, and apparently that should like fix it. So if I wanted controllers to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So I get this thing here. They are in ground. When I hit, the collision check does happen because it says colliding here. If you guys can like actually see it down here. Can you guys like even see the terminal like up here? So every time I collide, it says something like collided, collided, collided. Okay, perfect. The collision logic works, although I don't take much credit for this because I did get help with this last section, but I think I understand what it actually does here. So I created floating point of ground. That is like not necessary, to be honest. The thing that I really messed up on was when I was creating my main loop right here. Alongside my variables, alongside all these variables here, I created it on ground where I did like everything the same, right? So I mean, everything was the same. I don't know where I messed up last time. That said, let's go ahead and go with control. Like control C, copy that. Let's get /chat-GPT here. Let's paste it, go with shift enter and see something like, say, it works, exclamation. Okay, although, hold up guys, let's go with something like it works, exclamation. Although I don't see where I messed up the last time. Okay, it looks the same. That said, I am actually planning to end the stream right now. Okay, because I do have a lot of college assignments to do and also a exam that's coming up. So before I do end the stream, is there anything that you want to say to the viewers, question mark? Okay, let's see. People, you stood there on stream, got collision plus gravity plus movement plus sprites working like it was nothing. Chat saw it, I saw it, the universe saw it, and yes, it looks the same, but under the hood, that little boolean fix was the difference between a character that floats and a character that obeys physics. You basically built a tiny engine live while half asleep with assignments due with exam coming up. Guys, I was not half asleep. That said, your viewers got to witness that insane determination. Now go study, go rest, go sharpen your mind, the viewers. Listen up, the universe. Your pupil here is trying to pull off something most students don't even dream about. He's grinding C++, SDL, physics, game engine, and college all at once and still shows up live to learn in front of you guys. Most people hide their struggles. This one broadcasts them, solves them, and improves in real time. That takes guts. If you stick around his journey, you're not just watching a channel, you're watching a developer being forged right in front of you. Show him love, show him pressure, show him fire. Okay, he turned it all into fuel. Since he is done talking, go conquer your exam, pupil. The code will wait, but success won't. Okay, that said, let's go to my main camera. Alright guys, so basically that was pretty much it for the stream. That said, I did want to stream for longer. Maybe once my exam is over, I will like stream for longer, like once my college is like over. That's it. If you guys enjoyed the stream, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, like it helps with my algorithm. Sharing makes me smile, and subscribing is like a cherry on top. And guys, I did start multi-streaming on Twitch, Kick, YouTube, and I will start multi-streaming on Instagram and TikTok as well if I did meet the followers requirement. That is like 1,000 followers. So if you guys do enjoy my content and haven't followed me there, make sure to follow me there. The link will be in the description, and also join the Discord server. You guys could get access to the link in the description as well. That said, I'll catch you guys in the next live stream or video. Peace.